you can see tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people are making their way out of the neighborhoods of Beirut's southern suburbs. And the scene is similar along the highway from southern Lebanon to Beirut, because those evacuation orders were issued for dozens of villages in southern Lebanon. There is panic, there is chaos, there is anger. We've been speaking to people here. They're tired. It's 5 a.m. and it's Ramadan. These people were supposed to be having their final meal before they fast. They fast during the day. And you ask them, where are you going to go? And they say, we don't know. And it really, the same scenes that we saw back in September 2024, when people were sleeping in their vehicles, parking their car wherever possible. Israeli strikes targeted residential buildings in Beirut's southern suburbs just after midnight, following Hezbollah's launching of rockets towards the south of Haifa. Now, Hezbollah claiming responsibility. It came as a shock, really, to many here that Hezbollah decided to join the war, decided to take military action in support of Iran, because it is such a difficult decision for Hezbollah to do because of this. Because its supporters will be paying the price of any action that it takes. In fact, we've been speaking to people here. What they're saying is that what Israel does is displace people, punish people, collective punishment. Now, we are hearing reports as well that these strikes could have been assassination attempts against high-ranking Hezbollah officials. This is the reports coming out from Israel. We are still to confirm that. So Imran, as you can see, hundreds of thousands of people are on the move. And Lebanon, the Lebanese political leadership has been trying to prevent this country from being dragged into the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the United States. What is clear is that it failed to do so.
As tensions intensify, attention turns to Tehran's military response and how far this conflict could spread. Iran's military has already lashed out, firing missiles targeting ships and countries across the Middle East in retaliation. Iran's foreign minister, who led his country's negotiating team prior to the strikes, said, quote, "Nothing has changed in Iran's military capability." Retired U.S. Navy Vice Admiral Robert Murrett joins me now. He's with Syracuse University's Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs Institute for Security Policy and Law. Good afternoon, Admiral. I want to get your sense, and it's still early, based on these first 24 to 48 hours, of your assessment of Iran's military posture and the current risk of further retaliation.
Well, there's certainly a great question, Errol. There's certainly more potential of retaliation. Having said that, their military capabilities overall, which were already somewhat degraded just based upon attacks that have taken place in the last several months, have been degraded even further. And I think the things that have been gone after in terms of military associated targets are illustrative, specifically their ballistic and long-range missile capabilities, and also their naval capabilities. You heard the president making statements today about some attacks we've had on their naval assets, and because they were being used to try to take actions in the Strait of Hormuz. So the capability is still there, although it's been degraded fairly substantially, and not just in the last 24 hours, but also for some degree before then.
And what is your sense on the long-term change this could create? Iran's regional strategy has not been only the use of its own Quds force, but proxies in many other states in what some people describe as a Shia crescent, as they have influence in the region. What happens to that?
Well, the proxies are still a factor, although they're substantially weakened, whether it's Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis down in Yemen, or some of the other proxies they've got in countries like Iraq. But I think the real answer to your question, Errol, is the fact that Iran is taking some significant risk in terms of the retaliatory attacks that they've been conducting over the last several hours. I put those into two categories. There are the countries that have been involved or been used for U.S. basing in the region. That includes Qatar, Bahrain, and Jordan, and of course the Israelis in a special category of their own. But what's kind of surprised me a little bit is the fact that the Iranians have decided to target the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Oman most recently, and also Iraq, Kurdistan, so to speak, where there's U.S. basing. So they've tried to expand the conflict and attack some of the countries that made it clear from the start that they weren't going to participate in the attacks on Iran.
In our last minute, then, I'm curious to know what is the biggest question on your mind as we look to gauge, what's important to focus on in these early days?
Yeah, Errol, I think the big question is the scope and the duration of the conflict. It's already expanded just a little bit in the last 24 hours, although the fact that the president has said he plans to talk to the new so-called Leadership Council, members of the Leadership Council in Iran, the leadership that might be illustrative, but we still don't know the scope and the duration, how long this is going to take. There have been estimates we've heard from different members of Congress and people in the administration, but none of those are probably accurate at this point. And the scope and whether or not it's going to be expanded further to some of the countries that I mentioned earlier, which are surprisingly been drawn into the conflict.
All right, we'll keep watching all of that closely. Vice Admiral Robert Moret, thank you very much for your time today.
Best wishes, Errol.
Iran has claimed it shot down a United States Air Force MQ-9 Reaper drone amid the conflict. A video showed the drone being reduced to bits after being hit by an Iranian missile. The MQ-9 Reaper drone is a long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicle, widely used by the U.S. military for surveillance and strike missions. These drones can fly at altitudes over 40,000 ft and have an endurance of more than 30 hours before needing to land. The MQ-9 Reaper drones have been flown by both the U.S. military and the CIA over the Middle East for years in Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, and now Iran. The drone has a land and sea version. Iran has widened its retaliation, even targeting U.S. allies in the Gulf nations and now in Europe. Cyprus said a drone attack targeted Britain's Royal Air Force Base Akati overnight. According to a Cyprus government spokesperson, the unmanned drone caused limited damage. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said on Sunday that the UK will not join in strikes on Iran, but has agreed to let the U.S. use British bases for attacks on Iran's missiles and their launch sites. Yesterday, I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. Over the last 2 days, Iran has launched sustained attacks across the region at countries who did not attack them. They've hit airports and hotels where British citizens are staying. This is clearly a dangerous situation. We have at least 200,000 British citizens in the region, residents, families on holiday, and those in transit. I ask all our people in the region to please register your presence and follow Foreign Office travel advice. I know this is a deeply worrying time, and we will continue to do all we can to support you. Our armed forces who are located across the region are also being put at risk by Iran's actions. Yesterday, Iran hit a military base in Bahrain, narrowly missing British personnel. The death of the supreme leader will not stop Iran from launching these strikes. Their approach is becoming even more reckless and more dangerous to civilians. Our decision that the UK would not be involved with the strikes on Iran was deliberate, not least because we believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement, one in which Iran agrees to give up any aspirations to develop a nuclear weapon. But Iran is striking British interests nonetheless and putting British people at huge risk along with our allies across the region. That is the situation we face today. Our partners in the Gulf have asked us to do more to defend them, and it is my duty to protect British lives. We have British jets in the air as part of coordinated defensive operations, which have already successfully intercepted Iranian strikes. But the only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source in their storage depots or the launchers which are used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region. And we will also bring experts from Ukraine together with our own experts to help Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones attacking them. I want to be very clear. We all remember the mistakes of Iraq, and we have learned those lessons. We were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran, and we will not join offensive action now. But Iran is pursuing a scorched earth strategy. So, we are supporting the collective self-defense of our allies and our people in the region, because that is our duty to the British people. It is the best way to eliminate the urgent threat and prevent the situation spiraling further. This is the British government protecting British interests and British lives. Earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump said an Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. Trump noted that the operation carried out by the United States against Iran is the duty and the burden of a free people. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right, and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime, armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan "Death to America" or "Death to Israel" or both. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help.